Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and it's that most wonderful time of the year, again, to review some Christmassy films on the weekdays. Yes, and that's right, you read the title, you know exactly what the first Christmassy film it is that I'm reviewing. Because I think that, if you're ever interested in wanting to give any movie that has to do with Ernest, I'd say you should probably give this one a watch. Now, granted, because this is the second Ernest movie, but I don't know, because it seems as though that this Ernest movie is the best one out of any of them. No hard feelings on the others, and to anybody who, grew up and are fans of the late Jim Varney's work and his character Ernest, yeah, I'd say probably this film being one of the top best Ernest movies. Yep, that's right. I am finally reviewing from 1988, Ernest Saves Christmas. Yes, Ernest Saves Christmas. Well, this is the first Ernest movie that I've watched. Yeah, like I said, I think it's appropriate that this being one of the first Ernest movies that you should watch. Again, anybody who, knows the character Ernest and is interested and curious to check out some of the Ernest movies. Yeah. Now, I also like to point this out because I think it is obvious, and for a lot of us, knowing Jim Varney, well, we would probably know him best as the original voice of Slinky Dog from the first two Toy Story films. Yeah, and when getting to know Jim Varney some more, and not to mention, for us Disney fanatics, we would also know him best, not just as the voice of Slinky, but also the voice of Cookie from Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Yeah, but before he did both of those, well, he had a character of his own that he played, which, of course, being Ernest. Ernest started off being the spokesperson for a lot of commercials, and it wasn't until when Jim Varney and his character made their way into the Disney family, well, Disney, under Touchstone Pictures, would produce 4 movies that stars the one and only Ernest. Yeah, the first being Ernest Goes to Camp, and after that, well, Ernest Saves Christmas would be the second. And yeah, so there's a little bit of background for you. But yeah, the first things I have to say about Ernest Saves Christmas, well, I, of course, known about the character Ernest, and when knowing a lot of Jim Varney, and finally, and because I knew that I would be reviewing Ernest Saves Christmas, well, I'm glad to have finally watched this movie. And again, this being my first Ernest movie that I have watched, and, well, come on. Who doesn't love stupid humor, especially with how the character Ernest is? Come on, it doesn't hurt. Yeah. I think that what Ernest Saves Christmas delivers with its story and what goes on, and the fact that Ernest gets tangled with the actual Santa Claus, pretty interesting and funny altogether. Not to mention that, man, I'd say this Ernest movie does a pretty good job bringing some heartwarming and emotional moments. Golly, especially coming from Santa Claus himself, whom plays Santa. If not, I couldn't agree more, if not one of the top best, Santas in any Christmas material. Like, rather if it be a movie or a show, you get my point, yeah. And if any of you have seen Ernest Saves Christmas, you know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you would agree too. Even Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, I've seen his review of Ernest Saves Christmas, and the fact that he praises this Santa Claus in Ernest Saves Christmas. See? Because, yeah. Yeah, and of course, of course, this movie also gave me some good chuckles, And just unexpected moments, especially from the character of Ernest, and moments I was like, oh, I should have seen that coming, just, especially a couple of times where Ernest is in disguises, but I'll get into that later, so yeah. But just overall, Ernest Saves Christmas, I would say it'd be kind of a delightful Christmassy film to watch. If any of you are in the mood for Christmassy material like this, a funny, stupid movie starring none other than Ernest himself, Jim Varney, need I go on? Just, yeah, what more do I have to say? Ernest Saves Christmas is a not bad Christmassy film, and this being one of the Ernest movies. God, have you seen how many movies there were with Ernest? I tell ya. And like I said, Disney only producing 4 Ernest movies, and the ones after those, well, yeah. Alright, but anyways, so, with the first things I have to say about Ernest Saves Christmas, with all that out of the way, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Santa Claus is looking for his successor, and hapless taxi driver Ernest P. Worrell, if I think I'm pronouncing that right, again, you know me sometimes, is just the man to help him out. Traveling to Florida to pass his mantle onto children's show host Joe Carruthers, if I'm also pronouncing that right by any chance, Santa gets into unexpected trouble, and it's up to Ernest, along with a teen girl named Harmony, to assist Saint Nick with his important mission, or the future of Christmas could be in jeopardy. Okay, so, with that out of the way, getting into the film itself, yeah. First off, the opening credits, yeah, because I remember, and another mentioning of Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, his, top 12 list of the best Santas, because using the opening credits, but, because with the Coca-Cola Christmassy artwork, and Doug's comment in his review of Ernest Saves Christmas, how cheap the movie is. Well, obviously it had a budget, right? And this is Disney we're talking about. Especially since they filmed some of this movie at the now-defunct Disney's Hollywood Studios backlot. Used to be called Disney's MGM Studios, but then the name changed to Disney's Hollywood Studios. And of course, at that time, Disney's MGM Studios / Disney's Hollywood Studios, it had a working studio, yeah. So they did film a little bit of Ernest Saves Christmas on the back lot, and some of those houses that used to be there before the now-defunct Lights, Motors, Action took its place, and, and also, one of the other houses, being used for the Golden Girls, so, yeah, but anyways, so, with the opening credits, you know what, it's very wholesome, with beautiful chorus, singing some holiday tunes from Deck the Halls, come enjoy, da, 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 those. If you've seen the movie, you know which Christmas carols they were singing. But anyways, and, well, we come to, say, Orlando, Florida, and, well, we see this jolly guy with a beard who's made it off an airplane, and, well, that being Santa himself, being played by the late Douglas Seal, and for us Disney fanatics, we would know him best as the voice of the Sultan from Aladdin. Yep, that's him. And again, this Santa in Ernest Saves Christmas, how can you not love this guy? He is so wholesome, he is so kind, even with the shenanigans that he gets himself into, and, when Ernest and Harmony, they come to save him, you feel sorry for the guy and what he's trying to do. But of course, and it's obvious, at the end of the movie, all turns out great for him, and whom would become the next Santa. So yeah, and that's his purpose. Arriving in Orlando, Florida, he's to go to the Orlando Children's Museum to meet with this guy named Joe, who's a children's entertainer, and at a certain point, he's offered a role in a movie, which being called Christmas Sleigh. More on that later, and when, Santa himself makes his way into the studio and to see what Joe is has found himself involved in with doing a movie. And it is a Christmassy movie that he's involved in, kind of. But not your typical wholesome, like, Christmassy film. Again, when I get to that some more. And we have also, of course, come to our main star, and, you know, his name being the title of the movie, Ernest, being played by the late, legendary Jim Varney. He's a taxi driver, and we see that he's driving someone to the airport, knowing Ernest, some clumsy situations that he gets into. Nothing intentional that he does, but yeah. When trying to, you know, make his way to the airport with his passenger, and some shenanigans that happens, like, you know, cars, you know, almost hitting some cars, trying to, you know, and even when a tree falls out of a truck, a Christmas tree, and he saves that, or even when, say, his passenger heading his way to the airport, like, he was, like, in a state of shock, I want to say. I wouldn't think that he died, right? But he, like, flew out of the taxi cab. And, you know, how very kind of Ernest, you know, and not wanting this man to miss his flight. Yeah. And eventually, when getting to the airport, well, the taxi that Ernest drives accidentally runs over some luggage, two angry Asian guys complaining, and sure enough, they spot Ernest and know that he did it, and them chasing after him, even after Ernest, you know, the guy's still in shock, like, threw him where the luggage is taken. Hopefully he made it and is no longer in total shock. Yeah, and also because, you know, Santa at the airport, some interactions that he has at the airport, and, you know, even say, because, like, one gentleman that he was speaking with, wishing that it could snow in Florida, like, you know, back at home. And I believe, yeah, because that was Tom Nowicki, if I'm saying that right. Yeah, no, that was not it, but anyways. But yeah, overall, my point being is that, yeah, and Santa, like, multiple times, because, well, he knows everything about everybody, and pointing out a few things where, you know, what they wanted for Christmas, and, you know, Santa having checked that down, and so on. Yeah. But anyways, so eventually, and well, Santa waiting for a ride to get to the Orlando Children's Museum, and ultimately he rides in Ernest's taxi cab. Yep, and lucky for Ernest, getting out of that situation, you know, from those two angry Asian guys, and yeah. So, the interactions that Ernest and Santa first have, and when Santa, no matter how many times, you know, he is telling the truth. He's telling everybody, even when he's, you know, being checked out and, you know, making his way to Orlando, that he is the Santa Claus. And how slowly but surely Ernest would discover that, yeah, this is legitimately the Santa Claus. And yeah, just the funny moments that Ernest and Santa have, pretty funny. And like I said, where a Christmas tree fell out of a truck, and very kind of Ernest to save that Christmas tree. You know, it should have a home. And Santa seeing how nice and sweet that Ernest is. And, well, he knows who Ernest is. And then at one point, we come to one of our next main characters, which being Harmony. Harmony Starr, but her actual name is Pamela Trenton, and Pamela/Harmony being played by Noel Parker. Yeah, you know, when we first see her, she's trying to get out of there, out of a restaurant, without paying with money and such, and making an excuse that, you know, mentioning about her brother, but she doesn't have a brother, and saying that her brother, you know, was gonna head to the bathroom, but then making a run for it and not paying and such, and now she's stuck. But yeah, that was an excuse for her to just get out of there without paying. So, and she ultimately runs into Ernest in his taxi cab, and she catches a ride with him along with Santa Claus. And another mentioning of the Nostalgia Critics review of Ernest Saves Christmas, because if it doesn't feel unsettling, because, you know, her staring at Santa and Ernest, you know, and Doug is the Nostalgia Critic, just when we cut back to him, just calm call the police. That's one of my favorite parts from his review. And to speed things up, yeah, ultimately, Santa arriving at the Orlando Children's Museum, where he will find this next guy whom he knows will be the perfect new Santa Claus, the handing of the torch. And when Santa was about to pay Ernest, for the taxi drive, it's not really actual money, it's fake money with someone else's face on it, as Ernest points out. Also, not to mention that Santa brought along his magic sack. Yeah. And when Santa, he makes his way into the museum to meet with Joe, well, because we see Joe, he's entertaining a group of, from looks as though, yeah, and, Doug obviously didn't intentionally meant this, but, entertaining for the autistic children. If you've seen his review, and him establishing this, I'm autistic, and surprisingly didn't offend me. I'm just saying, But, anyways, so Joe, yeah, he was performing with dinosaur puppets, and, how the dinosaurs went extinct, the Ice Age, all that. And yeah, Santa arranging to meet with Joe, and him about to tell Joe that he is going to be the next perfect Santa, but ultimately all of that is interrupted when Joe's pardon my French, but it's true, his asshole agent pretty much shows up, and that being Marty Brock, being played by Robert Lesser. Yeah, and if you've seen this movie, and you would agree too, because yeah, God, what a horrible agent he is towards Joe, and how he treats Santa, even though, well, of course he never knows that it's Santa, and thinks that Santa is, yeah, and mistakenly thinking that his name is Santo or something like that, and yeah, Santa having trouble trying to tell Joe that, he's going to be the next Santa and such, while Joe is being informed by his agent and such that, about him being offered a part in a Christmassy movie and such. Yeah, poor Santa, what he's trying to do. However, not only that, but Santa accidentally left his magic bag/sack in Ernest's taxi cab. And when going back to the place, the business of taxi cabs and such, well, his boss doesn't believe in Ernest at all. That, yeah, Ernest drove the actual Santa to the Orlando Children's Museum, and that gets Ernest fired. Yeah, poor Ernest. And Harmony, what she says to Ernest, he needs some help, and he needs to lighten up, and so on. And when, yeah, Ernest and Harmony realize that Santa left his magic bag, and, well, and also Harmony doesn't believe it at first that, yeah, it's the Santa. And later that evening, well, because Ernest and Harmony, they make their way, and, well, Ernest has a truck. They make their way to Vern's house, and Vern, whom we never see on screen, okay? We basically see him from his point of view. When Ernest, still having that Christmas tree that fell out of that truck, bringing it to Vern's house, and, well, Ernest and along with Harmony talking to Vern and trying to get the Christmas tree set up, but every time Ernest, causing parts of Vern's house to be wrecked and destroyed, oh my gosh. And again, Vern's house and that filming location, well, again, that being from the defunct backlot at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which, being turned into Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, because I've seen a YouTube video about that, the specific location, where that house was, and as of now with Galaxy's Edge, and I'm sure you've seen it too. I think, yeah, from between Tampa J and World of Micah, both of them, yeah, because, doing videos about that. And I'm sure some of you might know what I'm talking about, and if you've seen them, nice. Anyways, but, yeah. And after all that, because, like, causing a mess and a wreckage in poor Vern's house, and again, we never see Vern on screen, and I was actually wondering, like, if by any chance we would see him, but no, it's one of those things. Yeah. And also, coming back to Santa, because, well, geez, because Joe's agent, Marty, assuring Joe that, he'll handle this situation with Santa while Joe goes off to the studio to be prepared and such for when the time comes for him to, start to shoot for this movie. And what Marty does is that gets the police to take him away to jail. And also, the lady at the front desk of the entrance of the children's museum, Mary Morrissey, if I'm saying her last name right, being played by Billy Bird. Even, like, she's a bit concerned, and with, Santa, presumably, because, and if it was necessary, yeah, was it necessary, Marty? You had to do that to that poor old man, and when even Mary sensed as though that, yeah, he seemed like an innocent, harmless old man. Jeez, again, pardon my French, what a complete dickhead Marty is. I mean, Robert Lesser, good actor, he's good at that, and that's why certain actors who play those certain characters are good at playing characters we just want to punch, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, pretty much. Anyways, and coming back to Ernest, well, he soon discovers, and when going back out to the truck, that looking in Santa's magic bag, he now fully discovers and knows that it's the Santa, and he has Santa's bag in his possession, and what's he gonna do about it? And not to mention, Christmas Eve is upon them. Yeah, and it's pretty much the next day, yeah. And to speed things up still, because, yeah, the time that Santa spends, poor Santa, at the jail, and, well, at least, it kind of goes great for him, especially being around, all of these, prisoners in this one big cell, D5, I want to say, well, the certain names that they give to the cells at jails, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, and within this movie, but yeah. So again, at least nothing bad happens to him when he's around these crooks and such. Not to mention, a little later, we see that he was teaching them how to harmonize and singing, 12 Days of Christmas on the 12th day of Christmas. And even, when getting them to quiet down and get to the last one, and and then we see all the prisoners, their hands sticking out of the bars, and they're applauding. That's funny. And when coming back to Ernest and Harmony, well, because, the next day being Christmas Eve, well, because they're at his house, and Ernest talks a little bit to Harmony about, when he was a kid, and, about Santa coming down the chimney and all that, and believing in Santa Claus, and some funny stuff that Ernest does while he's fixing breakfast, and just like this, yeah. So funny. And they've got to come up with an idea to, well, where are they going to find Santa? Well, first off, because they make their way back to the children's museum. Well, that's the obvious place to go to, and thankfully, because Ernest gets some information from Mary on where Santa is, and Mary tells Ernest that, well, Santa was taken to the jail, and, well, that's where they gotta go. And what happens next is Ernest, along with Harmony / Pamela, that being her real name, Pamela, they basically disguise themselves as being, people from the government. And Harmony playing the part of, the governor's niece, daughter, learning some stuff, and yeah. And apparently, the police officers, all that are at the jail, they fall for this. Ernest and Harmony, they nail at this, and when they get Santa out of the jail, and when they meet with him in the cell that he's in, and playing along and saying that, "You're not Santa," the laugh that Ernest does, yeah. And Jim Varney, because so good at, when he played Ernest, and how, well, he has to play a character being in disguise, and just, altering his voice and so on. so good at that. You know, we've seen this kind of thing before, and Jim Varney was one of those that nailed at it, without a doubt, in my opinion. And I'm sure you would, maybe some of you would feel the same way too. But yeah, so ultimately, yeah, they managed to get Santa out of there, and, well, it's a good thing because, well, nobody at the police station and at the jail, because they didn't wonder or said anything about the disappearance of Santa, that he left the jail and never came back. Well, I mean, because with what Ernest said in disguise, what was going to happen with Santa, so yeah. So yeah, all is good, and, well, you know, Harmony, she still doesn't believe that it's actually the Santa. However, even when, like, Santa tells and mentions straight to Harmony about something that happened with her as a little girl and, you know, on Christmas, yeah. And how that slowly but surely, like, you know, and Harmony, you know, obviously, like, how does he know this? Like, could it be really the Santa? Yeah, but she's not quite there yet, knowing that it's the Santa and she fully believes. Also, cannot forget to mention this, because at times in this movie, you know, aside from what goes on with Santa, Ernest, and Harmony, well, back at the airport and with the cargo and luggage being brought in and such, well, two characters working there, Chuck being played by Gallard Sarton, if I'm saying his full name right, and Bobby being played by Bill Byrig, if I'm getting the last name right too. Well, them checking out this one piece of cargo, and at times both of them bickering and going back and forth like it's an E or F, and, well, inside this container, this cargo, I should say, well, happens to be reindeer. Yeah, they get tangled with some reindeer, and yeah, just whenever coming back to them, and even, like, say when a little later on they call animal control, you know, to handle this situation, and when they see the reindeer, and somehow, because, you know, the reindeer, they manage to, you know, stand on top of the ceiling, you know, upside down, and so on, they find this weird and bizarre, and they just get out of there. They want no part of this. Yeah, it's just pretty funny with what happens to them. Not to mention, Santa did mention at one point about the reindeer being present, and that two of his elves would show up a little later on and handle this situation and come looking for him and, well, this new Santa. So, yeah. Anyways, so, and yeah, even, like, say, when, even before, because they rescued Santa from the jail, Ernest, explaining to Harmony at one point that, yeah, this is legitimately Santa's magic sack/bag, and how, you know, with the presents coming out of the bag, well, they start off being like these glowing orbs, and, you know, they can turn into anything, because, like, from, say, a nutcracker to a doll, or just anything, and there's at one point a little later on what Harmony does in Santa's magic bag, like, being very naughty and such, and how she was, like, this close to getting herself on the naughty list, yeah. But anyways, but also, yeah, and after they rescued Santa out of prison, well, they still have to find Joe, and there's one moment where Ernest, he has to be in another disguise, this time as an old lady, to ask where Joe is. That sequence got so funny, and, it's like the piece that wearing around his neck, you know, because, you know, neck injury or that kind of thing, just so funny. But eventually, yeah, because they know the location and whereabouts of where Joe is, at the studio. And Harmony stays behind while Ernest and Santa go to the studio. And another disguise that Ernest has to wear to get both of them inside of the studio, you know, the back lot and such. Basically, Ernest plays the part of this delivery guy in a truck delivering some snakes for these horror guys, you know, shooting a horror film. And, you know, with the talk that Ernest in disguise gives to the guy out in the gates, you know, once again, managing to convince, and the security guy falls for this, and they get in. And even when Santa was under a sheet and had to pretend to be the snakes, like rattling and such. Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, eventually, because when they get in, and now Santa going in by himself, I should say, to meet and talk with Joe finally. After the first attempt, he failed at that, unfortunately. And Santa can see what movie that Joe is involved in and, going to be a part of, if he fully signs on to this movie that he's attached to, and the part that he's offered for this movie. Well, this movie being called Christmas Sleigh, as I said. However, at one point, it's not going in the direction that you would at least think, even for Santa, like, what's going on? And when, Joe is, being directed on what to do and just to whip out a gun. And apparently, this creature that breaks down a door, who looks exactly like the creature from the Black Lagoon, about to attack Joe, and he's about to shoot the gun, die, you son of a... But he can't say son of a bitch. He can't. Even when they had to cut and, he just can't find himself doing it, even with, say, the children around him. But the director assuring him that, they've seen everything and just, they should be aware, however he says it. But, he's just one of those people that wouldn't really swear. That's from what I can tell, and you as well, yeah. Not one of those people that would be really a swearer. And you see, because it's obvious, it's another good reason why the Santa considering Joe to be the next Santa Claus. And once again, yeah, Santa trying to go up and talk with Joe, and, well, Joe telling everyone to back off and, let the man, speak out whatever he has to say to him, and that's what happens. And, well, Joe, obviously he doesn't believe at first, and even the talk and dialogue that Santa has, especially towards Joe, just so good. And, yeah, and Joe, well, possibly he might do this. And maybe he will drop out of the movie and do so. And also, he was told that being a part of Christmas Sleigh, and also because... Santa thought that, by sleigh, his sleigh, but no, sleigh, like slashing and stuff like that, a different word spelling, okay? But yeah, Joe was told that he requires to shave off his beard for the movie Christmas Sleigh, but because, no, he has to keep the beard on, and if he does believe Santa, and if he will become the next Santa, and... The whole reason as to why Santa is seeking the next Santa, the handing of the torch, well, this Santa, well, he had been doing this for a long time since the 19th century. And if the next handing of the torch, if it doesn't happen, the handing of the torch to the next Santa doesn't happen, well, the magic in Christmas could be lost forever, how Santa describes it to Ernest early on. Yeah, coming back to Ernest, because he still had been waiting out there, out in the back lot for a while, and these guys, they mistaken and think that, yeah, this is a truck for snake delivery, and they pour out some actual snakes in the truck. Poor Ernest. Well, how was he really supposed to know what was to come, But anyways, and coming back to Harmony, because, like I said, her doing something that, by any risk getting her on the naughty list, looking through Santa's magic bag/sack, searching for some stuff, and, the magic glowing orbs, and transforming into a lot of kids' toys, and a little later on, she ends up stealing Santa's magic bag/sack, because, well, she's wanting to get out of Orlando and to go anywhere. Not to mention, it was mentioned at one point that it had been 1 month since she ran away from home and from her mother. And Santa, it was mentioned, and Santa talking about that and telling Harmony that, that surely, yeah, her mother would be missing her. Yeah, Santa having no doubt about that. But yeah, ultimately, Santa succeeded on trying to talk and convince Joe, and it seems like it's going to happen. It will. And them leaving the studio, and when at one point, when Santa gives Ernest the information on what exactly happened and how until before 7 p.m., that's when Joe, if he's going to be the new Santa, has to take off into the sky, delivering presents on Christmas Eve, right as 7 p.m. hits, etc. And Ernest getting rid and disposing those snakes, and the fact that, how did he not know and realize at first that a couple of snakes have bitten and are hanging onto his face? Well, then he realizes, and Ernest, you know, what a character, of course. How can you not love a stupid character like Ernest, you know? Getting into unintentional moments like those. Like, say, Mr. Bean. That's a good example right there. Eh? Just, yeah, anyways. Yeah. So, well, once again, it seems like Joe will consider doing this, and, well, Harmony saying her goodbyes to Santa and such, and Ernest that she's once again staying behind, but little do they know, and well, little does Santa know that he didn't take his actual magic bag/sack with him, because Harmony has it, Pamela. And what Santa and Ernest are going to do next is, well, Santa, once again, going to meet up with Joe, and while Ernest is going to retrieve the reindeer at the airport, where the cargo and luggage are. And when Santa arrives at Joe's house, well, Joe, he had shaved off his beard, and it seems like he is going to do the movie after all. Yeah, not much believing and convincing, and it's a pretty sad moment right there. And when Santa sets Joe straight that, you know, search your heart, and Joe telling him that, you know, unable to, you know, how he says it. Yeah, so, and, you know, and besides, like, how he's not really fully convinced and able to believe in all this yet. And poor Santa, and even when he realizes that, yeah, he doesn't have his magic bag/sack, it was swapped, and the one that he has it basically has feathers in it. And when we see Harmony, well, she's making her way to the train station just to leave Orlando. And with how much money she has, and, well, because that came from Santa's magic bag/sack. And coming back to Ernest, because by this point, yeah, he has a big truck and is going to help load the reindeer in, and, well, sure enough, two of Santa's elves arrive, and yeah, it's pretty funny because it's them. Two of them, two elves that arrive at Florida to pick up the reindeer and such, and to meet up with Santa. Pyramus, if I'm saying that right, again, bear with me, and Thisbe, being played by the late Buddy Douglas and Patty Maloney. Yeah, so they're the two elves that arrive in Orlando, and even when, like, they, you know, meet with the same agent that was checking Santa's ID and, you know, wallet and so on, they know his name, Skippy. Yeah, so Agent Skippy. And yeah, so them making their way to, you know, meet with the reindeer while, Ernest is doing the same thing too. And apparently because the elves, you know, their names, like, being registered as elms, you know, and when, Ernest meets with Chuck and Bobby about the reindeer and such, and, you know, they're holding the reindeer until, till a name by elms shows up, and when the two elves arrive, because, you know, it's elves. And, them meeting with Ernest, and, well, because Ernest, you know, it doesn't take too long for them to know that, Ernest has been helping out Santa, and he too retrieving the reindeer, and thus they do so, loading them up the back of a truck and getting out of there. However, when they, you know, tried to escape, and, you know, even when Ernest had the remote to open the gates, well, some pointy spikes, you know what I'm talking about, like, well, how was Ernest supposed to know? Well, it's not his fault, but punches the tires, and what now? Well, Ernest, a little later on, he has an idea. Use Santa's sleigh. Hook up the reindeer to the sleigh, and, Yeah, that's what happens. And it's so funny because the reindeer, not the reindeer, the elves, like, they just feel so screwed being with Ernest. And when, well, surely they know that Ernest is trying to help out, but the fact that Ernest being so clumsy and how he's not quite good, piloting the Santa sleigh. And even when they're at the airport still, and some of the employees, like workers, happen to notice and spot Santa's sleigh being out there, an unauthorized trespasser and so on, police cars are sent out to chase after them, but sure enough, they get out of there, and when, Ernest and the elves are saying the reindeer's names, on Dasher, on Prancer, and Ernest having trouble, like, trying to say all of their names, even most notably Blitzen. Yeah. It's so funny. And sure enough, yeah, because them finally making their way out in the sky, flying, and again, Ernest not quite good at flying the sleigh, and crazy stuff happens while they're flying, how fast it's going. And even when the military base is aware, and when they see that there's something unknown flying out there, and jets are sent out to take them down. Oh my gosh! But with that going on, because, well, coming back to, say, from Santa, Harmony, and Joe, because Joe is this close to being a part of Christmas Sleigh, and the people that he's talking with, well, them saying that there could be sequels, like Christmas Sleigh 2, 3, 4, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sure, yeah, because we know something like that. And even when coming back to Harmony, slowly but surely, it's coming to her when she starts to feel guilty, and when she sees this mother and her two kids, a son and daughter, and the daughter talking all about Santa, and the brother being a little brat and being mean to his little sis, that Santa's not real, and Harmony starting to realize that, yeah, she's made a mistake, and yeah, this is legitimately Santa and with his magic bag. And when Santa, because he, by this point, failed to convince Joe and to search in his heart, yeah, what's he gonna do now? Well, Santa, he makes his way to get on a bus, and talking with this very nice elderly black gentleman, and he notices that Santa looks down, and, something, as Santa mentions, like something to do with judgment and such, and, well, as the elderly gentleman says to him, don't judge a book by its cover. Very important, the advice that, he gives to Santa, what he says, really good, yeah. And it's interesting, and, yeah, for once, some advice and that kind of talk that's given to Santa, and when Santa's feeling down. And we do see a little later that, yeah, Santa, he made his way back to the children's museum, and once again crossing paths with Mary, and Santa talking about what happened with him, and talking about Pamela and his magic bag and so on, and mentioning Ernest and how he failed to, find the next Santa. And with that, Harmony, knowing that she's made a mistake and is going to go back and find Santa, even confronting the boy, the brother and sister, and confronting the brother about, that, she is right, that Santa exists, and the little girl noticing that, Harmony is carrying Santa's magic bag, when she tells them that, she has Santa's magic bag, and the little girl asking Harmony, why do you have his bag? And yeah, well, thus Harmony making her way back to find Santa and apologize, and that's what happens. And Santa, he never doubted Harmony that, she could change and do the right thing, yeah. And as for Joe, well, a little later, he does notice and see outside of the window in the business meeting that he's with, like, if by any chance, and yeah, how slowly but surely he's going to be a part of this movie, he sees out the window the Santa sleigh flying around because of Ernest, and he now believes, and that's me. I'm the next Santa, and Merry Christmas, and well, he's not going to be a part of Christmas Sleigh any longer. Nope. And to speed things up, because yeah, more crazy crap that happens with Ernest and the elves on the sleigh, and how one of the elves, Pyramus, still having trouble pronouncing that name, is just like wanting to strangle Ernest, but no, come on. Ernest is helping, but even though he's he's being clumsy, even when he goes into hyperspeed and the sleigh is spinning around the Earth, almost similar to Superman spinning around the Earth. Jeez. And sure enough, Joe, he too meets up with Santa along with Harmony and Mary outside of the building of the Children's Museum. And, well, he finally accepts, and by shaking hands with Santa, the handing of the torch has now been passed to Joe. Now he's the new Santa. But, well, where's Santa's sleigh? And it should be there, right? Well, no, it's not, because of Ernest. Ernest has not been seen yet, and he hasn't arrived yet. However, there's so much more that Joe can do now as the new Santa. Even he now knows everything, and knowing Harmony's actual name. And Santa recommending and telling the new Santa, Joe, that, it should snow in Florida, because with one man he talked with at the airport, wishing it could snow in Florida, like back at his home. And Joe, not sure if he's able to do it, he does. It starts to snow in Orlando. A Christmas miracle right there. Christmas arriving in Orlando on Christmas Eve with snow. It's amazing. And ultimately, eventually, I should say, Ernest and the elves, along with the reindeer, they arrive at the location where Santa, Harmony, Mary, and the new Santa, Joe, are. And all ends well, Joe being the new Santa, and, it seems like a thing is about to start with Mary and the original Santa, as of now. And Joe offering Ernest and Pamela a ride on the sleigh, say, being a navigator and so on, even Ernest once again taking the helm, so funny. And even when the elves, they were telling the original Santa, because they didn't want Ernest to fly again, but for the original Santa, he doesn't care. He has no problem. Let Ernest do it again, And once again, Ernest having trouble with some of the reindeers' names and with Blitzen, and when they all tell him, Blitzen! And by saying the names, we see the control panels on the sleigh, and when saying the reindeers' names, the lighting on the buttons would lit up, You've seen the movie, and that's pretty cool. And thus, Joe, as now the new Santa, along with Ernest and Pamela, them flying off into the air, about to deliver gifts all around the world for the boys and girls. And also, how Pamela will soon go back home and, reunite with her mother, and just by telling her mother everything that she got herself involved with being with the Santa. And as for Santa and Mary, well, we discover that Santa's actual name is Nick Applegate. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, Seth Applegate, not Nick. Well, St. Nicholas and such, Seth Applegate, The original Santa's actual name is Seth Applegate, and because now we know his actual name, Seth, now going back as his actual name, Seth Applegate, and Mary, they headed off, and no plans tonight, and thus they get together. But that's very sweet, don't you think? And one last shot where we see them flying off, Ernest, Pamela, and Joe, now the new Santa, along with the elves. So funny. However, the movie isn't finished quite yet, because we come back to Chuck and Bobby, and now they have another piece of cargo that they're checking out, and once again nitpicking about the letters, and Chuck says that it's E, but Bobby says it's F. And early on, when it came to the reindeer, each of them thought it was either M or V. One of them did, and I should have seen it coming, and same goes for you. What's in this new piece of cargo and that they have to deal with? Well, out pops rabbit ears. It's the frickin' Easter Bunny. Who else? And there are times where Chuck, and at the very end, where his eyes go back and forth fast, and when those rabbit ears pop out, which mean the Easter Bunny, just him, just his eyes going back. It's just funny, stupid funny, and how this movie ends off in a stupid, funny way, but nothing really that bad, just in a funny way, Just a good, stupid, funny ending. What more do I have to say? Ernest Saves Christmas. Wow, just, yeah, what a heck of a Christmassy film this is, starring Ernest himself. You know, stupid, funny, just, yeah. The story to Ernest Saves Christmas is funny, but at the same time, because, you know, with the stupid, funny humor, it has some nice, touching moments here and there, the slapstick, the hilarious moments, of course, and, you know, with what goes on with the Santa, so heartwarming, one of the, if not one of the top best Santas, what he does in this movie, what his mission is to pass the torch to a new Santa, and how in the end it all turns out really great, a happy ending, and a Christmas miracle. And the cast of characters, and, you know, along with, of course, Ernest, and with the Santa Claus that's in this, Pamela, Bobby, Chuck, and some of the characters that were, you know, horrible people, most notably Joe's agent, and Joe himself being the new Santa Claus, and with the reindeer, the elves, the music and score, pretty good, and some of the visual effects, like, well, most notably when they are flying in Santa's sleigh, yeah, pretty good, and at that time, you know, the visual effects for this, yeah, not bad. Yeah, just overall, Ernest Saves Christmas is a pretty good, fun, stupid, hilarious, Christmassy film to watch, yeah. And if not, one of the top best, Ernest movies, yeah, pretty much. And I'm giving Ernest Saves Christmas, yeah, it's on my mind. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 stars. Yes, 7 out of 10 stars for Ernest Saves Christmas. And what about you guys? What did you think of Ernest Saves Christmas itself? Is it one of your favorite Ernest movies? And any of you that have seen the Ernest movies, and this one, of course, and if any of you that have seen the Ernest movies, and if this was your first Ernest movie, like I said, I think it seems very appropriate that, you know, for anybody, Ernest Saves Christmas would be their first Ernest movie to watch. Same goes for me. Anything you found hilarious in this, and any of you that are into stupid humor, and, you know, any of you, by any chance, you know, grew up, you know, watching some of the Ernest materials, and Jim Varney, and, you know, just, yeah, and with the Santa Claus that's in this movie, the heartwarming moments, and, yeah, just what more do I have to say? Yeah, just overall, what do you think of Ernest Saves Christmas itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and, yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments, and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Ernest Saves Christmas. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, reviewing Christmassy films on the weekdays has just begun. Stay tuned later tonight, because the next Christmassy film that I'll be reviewing, well, let's just say it's a remake on a holiday movie classic. And in this, well, one of the stars is a young Mara Wilson. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out.